is that we protect ourselves externally. And the second consensus has been violated because some of our fellow Schengen member states have not been complying with the Schengen rules. They just don't protect the borders. And that has the danger, or at least the risk, that the first consensus will be broken as well. And just imagine from economic perspective that the European industry, which is absolutely based on the working method of just in sequence and just in time, what kind of struggles and what kind of damage that would suffer if Schengen zone collapses, if the logistic operators are not in a position to calculate and predict the deliveries from one factory to another one. The whole European economy would lose 15 to 20% of her achievement according to very conservative and modest evaluations if Schengen zone collapses. And if we don't find a solution how to protect each other and ourselves externally, then it will maintain the risk of Schengen zone collapsing. So what we think, number one, is the protection of our borders. Just please put this into consideration. Whenever you travel, whenever I myself travel, you have to put out your toothpaste in a plastic bag in order to be X-rayed. I myself, when I flew out from Vienna this morning, my shaving foam was taken away because it was more than 100 milliliter, and I don't really look something, I hope at least, who would come to Denmark with another target than to talk to Christian and to you. But just imagine, there were 8,000 to 10,000 people on a daily basis entering the territory of European Union without any kind of control, without any kind of check, without knowing who they are, without knowing where they are coming from, without knowing what kind of intention they do have here. What kind of unbalanced approach is that? What kind of hypocrisy is that? And then the debate comes whether migration imposed threat of terror on Europe or not. And when we say yes, of course, migration put threat of terror on Europe, then we are usually accused saying that Hungarian foreign minister said migration equals terrorism. All migrants are terrorists. But no one says that. No one says that. What we say is that the fact that there are 8,000 to 10,000 people entering territory of European Union on a daily basis without any kind of control, without any kind of checking, does it give the chance to terrorist organizations to send their terrorists to Europe, or it does not? And I think the answer is obvious. And because it does. And in this respect, threat of terror and the worsening public security situation in Europe is one of the consequences of migration. That's why we say we have to start with protection of the borders. But this is not enough. This is not enough. Because we have to come to an agreement with the neighboring countries of Syria. It's fine that EU made a deal with Turkey. It's necessary, but is it enough? No. It's not enough, because there are millions of refugees already being taken care of in Lebanon, Jordan, and the Kurdish region of Iraq. If these countries or entities become unstable, it would mean that there would be another pressure of millions of migrants on the shoulder of Europe. This is something we should avoid. So we have to come to an agreement with the stable or relatively stable countries in our neighborhood, because we have to be aware of the fact that in the southern and southeastern neighborhood of ours, of Europe, there are, according to modest evaluation, 30 to 35 million people living in a life situation which can make them easily, on the short run, to hit the road. And if they hit the road towards Europe. Who are these? These are internally displaced persons. These are people who already had to leave their homes but living in the next or the next country. People living as internally displaced persons on humanitarian aid, and so on and so forth. So we have to come to agreement with the relatively stable countries to continue taking care of these refugees. Of course, it costs money. It definitely does. We have to give financial assistance to them. And third, European Union spends billions of euros of European taxpayers on development programs in third countries. I wouldn't say without any kind of conditionality, but without major conditionality. And we give development assistance to countries which are root causes or origins or transits of migration. Why don't we stick our development programs to conditionality? If we give money from the European taxpayers to third countries, let's force them to make reforms which then would decrease the outflow from their perspective and the influx from our perspective. Let's ask them to carry out reforms which would enhance and develop the situation of the given countries, both political and economic. So people won't leave those countries. So I think complex solution on a complex challenge is necessary, although you see it requires at least 20-25 minutes to elaborate on that, and 30 seconds are not enough for that. So this is one of the reasons why these kind of accusations are usually had to be faced by us. So this is how we see the current situation. It's not an exaggeration to say that since the conclusion of the Second World War, we never had to face so many and so serious challenges at the same time. And because of these challenges, I think it's very, very important to come to united European solutions. Because I think unity of European Union is one of the most important strengths of the integration. But I think that bashing and accusation doesn't help. And I think it doesn't help that if you are just a little bit out of the mainstream, you're gonna be bashed and accused immediately. This is something which is not useful. I think Europe should be ready for political debates. And Europe should not stigmatize those ones who speak directly about things as they are. We will always take the liberty to ourselves to name things as they are. Because I think one of the most significant traps where European Union is still in is being stick to this PC kind of way of speaking and being hypocritic in this respect, which I think we really should avoid. So that's why I try to be as honest as it is possible to you, and I really do hope that you don't think that you made a very bad decision of with inviting myself. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Now is the chance for you to ask any questions. My teammate Mark and I will be passing the microphones to you. Please raise your hand. Keep a respectful tone. And one question per person, please, since we only have 20 minutes now.
I'm coming from internal politics. I served as a spokesman for 6 years, so you cannot, I cannot imagine a tone which is not respectful.
Okay. So feel free to raise your hand if you... Mark?
Yes, thank you for your speech and welcome to Copenhagen. I want to talk about Russia, which was one of your points. I acknowledge that Hungary is deeply dependent on Russia, of course, in terms of energy and trade also, but how do you deal with a guy like Vladimir Putin, who took a big part of Ukraine last year, 2 years ago? I have many friends in the Baltic countries which are very worried about this. If Europe doesn't have a reaction, how do you deal with this thing?
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I want to say that, as I told you, we stand for territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine because of many reasons. Number one, because this is a principal position. Number two, it is our neighboring country. Number three, it is between Russia and us. And number four, there's a significant Hungarian community there. And the interest of the Hungarian community is the same as the interest of the whole Ukrainian nation, to live in a safe and a strong country. But in order to reach a situation when Ukraine can be considered as strong and stable, they have to carry out some reforms, of course, as well. And for this, we have already offered our assistance and help. On behalf of the Visegrad Cooperation, you know, it's a Central European cooperation between Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. We have distributed fields of necessary reforms on which we give advices to the Ukrainian government. When it comes to your Baltic friends, I totally understand their point. That's why, as a clear signal of solidarity, just recently we have made a decision among the 4 Central European countries that next year we send 150 troops each, 4 of us, on a basis of 3 months rotation to the territory of the Baltic countries. Last year we have been involved in air policing mission over the Baltic countries in the framework of the smart defense of NATO. When it comes to this Ukrainian issue, I understand it's very, very easy to bash Hungary just because we maintain a pragmatic cooperation with Russia. I didn't really hear any kind of criticism in the recent days when President Putin spent 2 days in another EU member state called Greece. I didn't really hear this kind of criticism like 3 weeks ago when my French colleague visited Moscow and handed over the official invitation of the French president to the Russian president to pay an official visit in Paris in the autumn. I didn't really hear this kind of criticism when the Italian Prime Minister received the Russian president in Milan just last year. I didn't hear this criticism when my Slovakian colleague visited officially Moscow 2 weeks ago. And you know, my position is that that kind of approach which would say that if your country is above a certain size, you are allowed to talk to Russia, and if you are under a certain size, you are not allowed to talk to Russia. This is something which we will never accept, actually. But from a pragmatic perspective, why we say that not business as usual, but we have to maintain some discussion with Russia is that those major global challenges which have occurred recently, Iran, Syria, and the others, for these challenges, we could find a solution with a much bigger chance if there was an agreement between the transatlantic community and Russia. You know, I was happy with the scenes, seeing on television that John Kerry, Philip Hammond, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, and Wang Yi were sitting on the same side of the table with Sergei Lavrov. No one had a criticism about that. Because it's necessary to maintain a level of dialogue, because without an agreement between the transatlantic community and Russia, there had been no solution to the Iranian crisis, and there would have been no forward progress when it comes to Syria. So my position is that we have to make our position very firm and clear, that we don't accept the violent change of borders. We don't accept violating the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. But in the meantime, in order to overcome global challenges, we need to maintain a level of pragmatic dialogue with Russia in this respect. But you know, when it comes to Ukraine, there are some countries who are very loud on supporting Ukraine, you know. But my question is, which is more important? To support Ukraine or to speak about it? Actions or words are more useful? My position is that actions are more useful. We were the first country in European Union to sign official agreement with Ukraine about reverse flow gas deliveries. Having known that Russia will not like it. Having known that we have 85% of our gas import coming from Russia. So it's not all the same for us. We were the first one. And we were the first one to deliver gas on a reverse flow basis. And I tell you more. Hungarian government and other Hungarian organizations finance, let's say, a significant part of institutions in the western part of Ukraine, in the region which is called Zakarpattia. We finance hospitals, cultural institutions, schools. We give financing to churches. But we don't speak about it because we don't do it in order to speak about it. We do it because they need it. So I think, you know, actions in this respect are much more important than words. Of course, we understand that we don't speak about these actions of ours too much. It can create a unfair context about us regarding this situation. So I just would like to assure you that that Hungary has always been a committed member of the transatlantic alliance of NATO. We have always been a committed partner in the EU. We have never been breakers of unity. We will never be breakers of unity, and we have always sticked ourselves to common European decisions, regardless what kind of impacts they had on our economy and on our country. But thank you for raising this issue, because it gave me a chance to speak about things about which we...
It's a pleasure listening to your position. People in Denmark with a long history know that you guys opened your border and initially removed the Warsaw Pact. With that history that you guys opened your border, and then the other countries opened their border, and now there's no Eastern and Western Europe. So you guys are grateful, we thank you for that. My point is that at the present moment, you have the Chinese government has implemented a two-child policy. You have India that has over 1 billion people. You have Nigeria that has a growing population. You have Cairo that has a growing population. Europe they're producing one child, two child. The resource that these countries has to supply, to feed their people, every country has to feed their people. How are they going to maintain feeding the people, their people, in comparison to other rich countries? Where are these, in the case of your migration, how are you going to support the Chinese population that will be growing and has so little resource to feed their population? What are they going to do? How do you see this situation?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for your question. Well, extraordinary invitation, extraordinary questions, but this is the normal way how it operates. So my position is the following: that historic situation when we have opened our border, which then ended up in non-isolation, non-division between eastern and western part of Europe, and current situation has totally different circumstances. Currently, what we experienced on our southern border was that actually